You doing math? I got you. All right, so today I'm going to show you how to multiply mixed numbers, right? What if we don't have fractions? What if we have whole numbers and mixed numbers and a whole bunch of random stuff, right? So all put together, how do you still multiply that? The first thing what you want to do is you want to make sure everything looks like a fraction. And so the first thing you're going to do is when you see 3 and 1/4, you realize that's a mixed number. And so the first thing you want to do is dot plus. So you put a dot right here, and you put a plus sign right here. Once you do that, then you fly to Texas. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day. Spread my wings and fly away. Oh, I believe I can soar. You see me running through that open door. So now since I turned that mixed number into a fraction, I now look at the next number. And the next factor is 6. But 6 is not a mixed number. And it's not a fraction. So how do I turn 6, a whole number, into a fraction? Well, all you gotta do is put it over 1. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it over 1, which is going to make it look like 6 over 1. So I'm going to rewrite that and bring it down. 6 over 1. And as soon as I do that, I now have 2 fractions. And if and when I have 2 fractions, I could go ahead and use my strategy. What's my strategy? How do you multiply fractions? Remember, you multiply straight across. The top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and multiply 13 times 6. And so 6 times 3, 6, 12, 18. I regroup that 1. I'm going to put 18. Right? I regroup that 1. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 more is 78. Once you have 78, now you're going to multiply the denominator, the bottom with the bottom. And so that becomes 4 times 1, which is 4. All right, now this is not my final answer. And before I convert it back into a mixed number, I want to simplify this. And in order to simplify this, you'll notice both numbers end in an even number. So 78 is an even number because of the 8. And 4 is an even number, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut both numbers in half. So I'm going to divide that by 2. And I'm also going to divide that by 2. All right, so once I divide that by 2, I'm going to do the easy one first if you don't mind. 4 divided by 2, cut it in half. That basically gives me 2. And this one's a little bit more challenging, right? But I'm going to show you how to do it without a calculator. So if you take 78 and you know you have to cut it in half, why don't you break it apart, right? I'm going to think about 78 in expanded form. And I'm going to have 70 on one side, and I'm going to have 8 on the other side. And I'm going to go ahead and take 70, and I'm going to cut that in half. And when I cut that in half, that becomes 35. And then I take 8, and I'm going to cut that in half. That becomes 4. So I now have 35, and I have 4. I mean, you put them together, congratulations, you have 39. All right, so we're looking at 39 over 2. So you can see 2 is an even number, I can cut it in half, but 39, I cannot cut that in half. Why? Because the ones place values show a 9, and 9 is not an even number. So I cannot simplify anymore, but I can't leave it like that, because that's not a regular fraction. That's an improper fraction. How do I know that? Well, to me, when I look at that, it looks like a 2-year-old is holding up a 39-year-old. That's not right. If it's not right, that means it's improper, right? And so that's an improper fraction. So I ask myself, if I count my 2, how many times does 2 go into 39, right? And so I'm thinking, man, if that was a 40, bro, that would have been perfect, right? And that would have been 40 divided by 2, which would have been 20. So it doesn't go in there 20 times. I'm pretty sure it goes in there 19 times. And because it goes in there 19 times, I'm going to put a big 19. So again, I'm going to put a big 19. 2 goes in 39 how many times? 19 times. And so there are definitely going to be stuff left over. And so 2 is going to be at the bottom. And there's only one number left over, right? Because 2 times 19 gives you 38. 38 plus one more gives you your 39. This right here is equivalent. That is my final answer, 19 and a half. I mean, you could do that on the calculator, and I guarantee you'll get 19.5, right? 19.5. If you want to make that look like money, all you gotta do is annex a zero because it doesn't change the value, and so that's $19.50. So if somebody was walking down the street, la 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 la, and all of a sudden like, oh my God, I found $39, and somebody across the street, no, it's not. That's mine. I found it first, and you be like, yo, let's just split it. That's what that looks like. $39 divided by 2. Those two individuals get $19.50. Now, if I saw money on the floor, I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna pick it up, bro. I'm gonna just look at it and be like, wow, I'm gonna look around and I'm gonna just walk away, bro. Because I'm not trying to deal with that. All right, check this out. The next one. Next one, both of them are mixed numbers, right? And so what do you do with mixed numbers? Remember, you do dot, plus, and then you fly to Texas. And so that's exactly what I'm gonna do right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and multiply. Here, let me do it in this color, yeah. I'm gonna go ahead and do dot, plus, and I'm gonna fly to Texas. And so remember, the airplane starts at the bottom. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 more is 7. So your numerator is 7, and your denominator, that was 5, it stays the same. Okay, that's the first one. So the first number, I turned it into a fraction. The second mixed number, I'm also going to turn it into a fraction. So I'm going to do dot, plus, and then I'm going to fly to Texas. And again, we start at the bottom because that's where the airplane starts, right? And takes off. And so 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 more gives you 7. And so the denominator is a 2 here, so it stays the same. And then you just multiply straight across, right? So you multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. 7 times 7 is 49. 5 times 2 is 10. Then you're going to try to simplify it, right? And so it ends in a 0. So that means it's an even number. That is an odd number. So you definitely can't divide it by 2. But I could take the 10 and divide it by 5. But if I count by 5s, I know that anytime I count by 5s, either ends in a 0 or a 5 or a 0 or a 5 or a 0 or a 5 and a 0 and a 5 and a 0 and a 5. And that ends in a 9, so that doesn't work. And there's nothing else I can divide that 10 with, right? Besides the 5 and the 2. And there's nothing that I could do with the 49 besides like 7, right? But if I count by 7, I'll never say 10. So I'm just thinking about all the different possible numbers that I can count by, like count by 2s, count by 5s, count by 7s, right? Until I can get to these numbers, both numbers, right? If you can't get to both numbers, you can't simplify. And I believe that you cannot simplify this anymore. That is the simplified version of this fraction, 49 over tenths. The only other thing you have to do is you have to consider what kind of fraction this is. Well, what is this fraction? Well, look at it. Doesn't it look like a 10-year-old is holding up a 49-year-old? Bro, that's 10-year-old, that's a 6th grader, maybe a 5th grader. That's a 6th grader holding up a 49-year-old? Like, come on, that's not right. And because it's not right, we say it's an improper fraction. And you can't leave it like that, right? How you gonna see something, how you gonna see a 10-year-old holding up a 49-year-old and be like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, this is not the money story, bro. Like if I saw money on the floor, again, I'm walking, I'm just minding my business. I'm not picking it up. But when I see injustice like this, you gotta change it. And so you gotta ask yourself, 10 goes into 49 how many times? It's a division problem. 49 divided by 10. So count by 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Whoa, that's too much. 10 goes into 49 4 times. So what do?
I put a big 4.
That's my big 4. But then I got stuff left over, right? Because, remember the denominator stays the same? Because 10 times 4 is 40. Well, what's left over? 40. 10 times 4 is 40. I'm trying to get to 49. 10 times 4 is 40. 40 plus 9 will give you 49. So that would be considered equivalent. And so this would be my final answer.